Welcome back to the Board Game Co channel, and this is a preview of Fate of Venterra. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Co channel. Today we have a preview of Fate of Venterra. Now this is a sponsored preview, so thank you to Corrosive Games for sponsoring this preview, and please keep in mind that this is a current crowdfunding project. You can find their link down below, and also with that, keep in mind that this is a prototype copy, and this is a demo to show you. There's also a playthrough on the Board Game Co channel, either before or after this video, but you can find a playthrough of me, Alex, and AP playing this game, and this is kind of the aftermath, so it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I guess maybe just don't pay attention to who's who, and maybe I won't give that away. Fate of Venterra is a very tight area control game that goes over the course of 6 rounds for 2 to 5 players. Now the players are using asymmetric factions. There are some things that you can always kind of bank on where they're trying to build different outposts and shrines, and they also have an arsenal of units for them, but each of the different factions do behave quite differently, and even the different things that you're building will give you different rewards. So first I'm going to talk about the general structure of the game, and then I will talk about how these factions differ, because it can be very cool and unique how they interact with each other on the board. In the game, there are 6 rounds total, so you know that you have a limited number of actions that you'll be able to do, and some things can cause bonuses, but you're pretty much limited to those 6 rounds. And within those 6 rounds, you have 4 action cards that you will be able to choose from, and from those, you'll be choosing 2 each round. So that is the general pace of play of the game, is that over those rounds, you'll be playing 2 of these cards each time, completing the actions on them against everyone else, going in turn order, playing them one at a time. But there are 6 phases that you will go through, where there is a preparation phase, an income phase, and then you will be playing those cards and interacting with other players. The game will be played over the 6 rounds, and over those 6 rounds you'll be playing 2 action cards each. Now you'll be going through 6 different phases every round, but a lot of them are set up leading up to these action cards that you'll be using. So everyone does have these same 4 action cards, meaning that you'll know exactly what everyone might be planning on what they're doing, but there are a few other things that will add to that, and you'll be going through all of these phases to see what players will do. So to make that make a little bit more sense, we will go through the phases. Each round, first you will go through income. Depending on the number of buildings that you have built, you will get more income. So you will get income for everything that you have placed out, and this is when you would also have to pay for your units if you have a forge as well. After that, the next phase is Declare. This is when all players are choosing which of those 2 cards they would be playing. Now, just to show you, and I'll get into these in more detail later, but we have Maneuver, Plan, Reinforce, and Charge. So you'd be choosing of these 4 action cards which 2 you want to be doing this round of the 6 rounds of play, and once you are ready, you would have them and everyone would reveal simultaneously to show which actions they are going to be using. Now there is an initiative track, so you'd see the red player would be going first, and then the white, and then the blue. So this will show you that the red player would play one of their chosen 2 cards after seeing what everyone has chosen, and then after that all players can react and choose which of the 2 cards they'll play first and kind of decide what they want to do around the board. This is known as first and second command, so they are 2 different phases, but first command is when you play the first card and second command is when you play the other. I'm just going to explain the rest of the phases first before we get into what these cards do. So after that you have Quest. All players would complete up to 1 reserved quest. These are quest cards that you'll be able to reserve, and when you complete them you'll be able to score the victory points at the bottom plus the bonuses that they show. And then after that, for large armies, which is any that has more than 3 units on a certain spot on the board, you'd have to pay 1 coin each to be able to feed them for them to be able to stay on that spot. Now, going into these 4 different cards, this is really how you're going to be maneuvering around this board. I shouldn't say that because one of the cards is actually maneuver, but it's going to be how you are interacting with the game. So moving right on to that, we have Maneuver, which is march any single number of units from a single territory and march 1 support unit. Meaning that you have all units in 1 single territory and you can spread them out to any territories that are adjacent, and you can also move a support unit, which would be a ship. After that, you are able to buy an upgrade, which are these upgrades here for each faction, or you can recruit a unit. Recruiting a unit is how you gain more units onto the board. All players will start with some, but they have more available to them, and as long as you can pay the coins for them, you can spawn them in the appropriate areas. Now after Maneuver, we have Plan. Plan is where you can reserve up to 2 quests. Those are the quests that I talked about earlier, where when you meet these certain conditions, when you enter phase 5 of the game, you can then complete them and gain the bonuses shown, which is generally victory points and a different reward, which will help you get more and more ahead. Now you can reserve 2, you can also draw from the top of the deck, and then after that you are able to move 2 units or gain 2 money. Money is generally spent for upgrading your different outposts and shrines, as well as these different abilities here for your faction, but you also spend money for commander cards. Commander cards are going to be things that will be useful in battle that I'll show you in a little bit, but that's something that money will be used for. At the end of the game, money is also worth a 3-to-1 ratio for points, but that is the most inefficient way to use it in my opinion. Moving on, we have Reinforce. You can recruit 1 unit to any building that you control. That means you would then pay the cost for that unit and be able to put it into the building that you have on the board. And then, this is very important, you are able to upgrade a building and then build a building. The order is very important because you are not able to buy a building and then immediately upgrade it, but you are able to upgrade a building that you already have and build a new one, which would be, again, an outpost or a shrine, and your outposts turn into different things, such as your forge, academy, and tower, and your shrines turn into basilicas and temples. Now, that is the same for everyone, but the rewards that they give are different. So, for example, here, this academy would give 1 victory point, and recruiting costs 1 coin less. Whereas over here for this faction, the academy is 1 less shield, but the commander cards cost 1 coin less instead. Now, moving on to the next action, we have Charge, where you can march any number of units into a single territory and march 1 support unit. So that means instead of being able to move everyone out, you are able to target a single area and move everyone in from any of your surrounding regions. You are then able to buy commander cards or gain money after playing this card, and those are the 4 actions that you are able to do. So you're basically moving around the board, gaining these quest cards, and building up your different buildings. Now, the reason that you're building your buildings is that they do give you victory points at the end of the game, but control over these different areas will also give you victory points at the end of the game. You can see this card here that for every water territory would be 3 victory points, every forest would be 3, every desert would be 5, but you cannot build there. Every mountain gives +1 defense and 5 victory points, and these obelisks, which are scattered throughout the different types of terrain, would also give an additional victory point each. Now, you can also see that all players start with their different fortresses. That's where you'd start in the game. There are some factions that do not have that, spoiler alert, but these are the more classic way to start the game. And a final thing to note about the board setup is there is this central board where you would gain these abilities at the end of each round. So you can either gain a coin or gain one of this particular symbol. Now, this symbol we haven't talked about yet, but that would be these 2 tracks here. So you have your battle track and your building track. Now, both of these tracks are very important and the main way to get victory points throughout the game. So it encourages you to both build different buildings and also engage in battle for the different areas where you want to be building these buildings and then defending them to get victory points at the end of the game for having that terrain type as well. So you can see here for the battles that have been initiated, the tokens have been moved up on the board, and there are certain symbols that trigger when you get to certain places, such as gaining a God's Favor card and a coin, gaining a Paladin unit, etc. The same thing also happens when you build different buildings, and you can trigger additional actions such as a building, upgrading one, or upgrading your faction ability. Now, these abilities can be quite powerful and really change the game. For example, this one has Convert. When you recruit any unit, you may remove an enemy from a territory adjacent to any of your territories. Now, it does have to be a specific type, but when I recruit, sorry, I should not say I. That's a spoiler alert for the playthrough. But when recruiting, that faction would be able to take away someone that is adjacent to one of their controlled areas just for being able to do that because they are converting them over to their side. Now, a couple other things to note is that you are able to bid at the ends of round 2, 4, and 5 for initiative order. You'll be paying coins for this, and it's a blind bid where everyone takes their coins and then shows how many they have, but this is a way to get ahead in initiative, and every round you'll be choosing these different abilities as well. So this is moving up 2 on one of these tracks, and this would be 2 coins, this would be gaining or completing a quest, this would be a God's Favor card, and this would be completing the action, which would be the reinforce action. Now it is only action 1, so that kind of shows you in the block it would be recruiting 1 unit to any building you control, but that is an additional action that you would be able to do. So the players will be able to choose these in turn order to be able to gain these bonuses as well. Now, something that we didn't talk about yet is these God's Favorite cards. You'll be drawing them, and they'll be doing different things that are very, very powerful and honestly really change the game. For example, one of them is play after a battle you initiated. You can perform an additional charge action with up to 3 units that participated in that battle, meaning that if you performed a battle action 1, you can then charge with your additional units. And with that, I think we should move on to battle, because that's really the end of the game. A lot of it is that you're going to be moving out, playing your different cards, moving your armies, building up these different areas to gain victory points and income for the different things that you have placed out. But the heart of the game is going to come when you start coming pressed up against these different areas for area control, and when you start fighting over the different regions. A battle will occur when a player moves on to another player's spot that has a player there. So for example, if this player moved his units over into this spot, a battle would occur, and then you would add up their different units' strength and defense. So the attacker would add up all of their strengths, which would be the red box for them, so 1 for their soldiers, 2 for their knights, etc. And then the other player would add up their defense. So if they have a siege, it may be a better defense for them, things like that. And there are things like fortresses, which you can build in specific areas, which will also give you additional defense. A lot of your buildings do give you defense, but once you add up the damage plus the defense, you are able to play a leader card from your hand. Now when you do so, here's an example of some of them, but you would be able to play one of these, which would add 1/1 to this encounter, or it could add 2/2, again, depending if you're being attacked or defending, only one of those would be applicable. But after that, the losing player would have to retreat and lose a figure, and then the other player would get to gain control of that current area. Now when the game starts, there are actually tokens all around the board that have different shield values. So you'll see these as well, and that's also an incentive to start exploring unexplored areas of the board, because once you do these, they do have an ability on the other side. It usually gives you a coin or something small, but either way, you are getting ahead, and trust me, even 1 coin can mean a big difference in this game, especially toward the beginning. Alright, so just to reiterate, you'll be playing these 6 rounds, playing your 2 actions each, meaning you get 12 actions over the course of the entire game to move as much as you can throughout the board to gain area control and build as much as you can, because that will give you victory points as well. Now, as I said, all of the players have asymmetric abilities, so we read a convert ability over here. Another ability that this faction would have is that they can pay 2 points on between these tracks to cancel a god card played against you, or 3 to play one not played against you. So those god cards that can be extremely powerful, they can actually just cancel it once they have this ability in play. So you can see how the different factions kind of manipulate each other, that depending on what they're focused on and what abilities they choose to pay into, they are really able to scare each other and also hold their own while feeling like they are very asymmetric. Now for the pace of play, I think it's very interesting because I think there are a lot of things that are important in this game. You want to be expanding as much as possible, but you also want to be building all of your different buildings. You want to be conquering your different opponents, but you also want to be accomplishing your different quests. Now, I found that it was a very delicate balance between all of those things and being able to chain and trigger additional actions whenever you can, such as on the different tracks that will give you an extra action. And that's really the best way to maneuver and dance around your opponents to hopefully come out on top. This has been a preview of Fate of Venterra. I highly suggest checking out their crowdfunding links so that you can see all of the different factions that they have available for this game. And there is a playthrough either soon on the channel or already on the channel that you are also able to check out as well. I've been Professor Meg. Thank you all for watching the Board Game Co channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!